Hello and welcome back to another episode of Football Heritage, here with your host Stephen Clark. Thanks for tuning in, anyone who has clicked on the video. Today we're going to be talking about something just a little bit different for this channel. So obviously anyone who's followed the journey so far will know that I'm a massive soccer fan of football if you're from Europe, and it's been a massive passion of mine for probably the last decade, even more. But there is another sport that has kind of taken my heart in the last few years. It's a sport that I played a lot of as a kid, and always had a passing interest in it, but specifically because a family member of mine actually played in our country's top competition. I'm of course talking about AFL, Australian football, or Aussie rules for some foreigners. It's an amazing sport, and I implore anyone who might be stumbling across this video, who's a soccer fan and might not have seen any of it or seen much of it, to give it a go, because honestly it's a brilliant sport. And for anyone that I'm boring who already knows everything about AFL, today I'm going to be talking about the Melbourne Demons, and specifically what chance they have of winning this year's Premiership flag. So for anyone who doesn't know this, I am a Melbourne Demons supporter, and the club has been, let's say, some fans would say cursed for for many years. The last Premiership that they won was in 1964. So that is how long that the fans have been in drought for, since well before I was even born. Going back before that, though, the club has a very rich history within the AFL, or as it was back then, the VFL, Victorian Football League, before teams from the rest of Australia joined. Melbourne were premiers 12 times of the competition, and minor premiers 9 times. So they have a prestigious history in the competition, but have failed at replicating the great success of the 50s and 60s under coach Norm Smith, and with the talismanic leader of Ron Barassi back in those days. But a new era has emerged at Melbourne Football Club. They've been carefully building and assembling a squad for the last probably 5-6 years, and they're finally starting to reap the rewards of it. And it's culminated in what's been a fantastic season for the club. They've broken the amount of wins records the amount of wins that the club has ever had in a single season. They have, like I mentioned, the first chance since 1964 to win the minor premiership on the weekends when they play Geelong, and basically whoever wins that game will win the minor premiership. So really, really exciting stuff there. And it's kind of uncharted territory for a lot of Melbourne fans that haven't had the opportunity to see the club at this point in pretty much their lifetime. I mean, the last time they made a grand final was in the year 2000. So that just goes to show how long it's even been since the club has had any kind of sniff at success. Recent memories come to mind of a prelim final against West Coast where they lost, and West Coast obviously went on to win the grand final that year, so it stung even more. But let's talk about this season. So, like I mentioned, they've broken the amount of wins, and they've one big thing that I really want to mention is that this team has kind of overcome adversity like almost no other team I can think of in AFL history, to be honest, because there's some of the things that have been thrown at them this season. I mean, like a game called off for lightning storm, which is just unprecedented in AFL. And they had to sit on the tarmac for 4 hours before, and then go play a game. They were stuck on the landing strip, didn't know whether they were flying to the game or going home. And all the teams have had to deal with the complex issue of isolation and traveling interstate, and being away from their families, and playing without crowds. So I think that this is a really interesting era for the AFL. And I think that Melbourne Football Club has handled themselves incredibly well throughout. Now let's talk about the team, because I'm really, really excited to talk about this team. It really is such an exciting team, and I've gone through some of the key stats behind why they've been successful this season. And when you break it down, you really see a clear sort of image of who the kind of key players in this side are. It's worth mentioning what I kind of said at the top of this video, which is that it's a squad that they've carefully assembled over the years, and they've mixed high draft picks with some really smart trades. They've brought in the draft the likes of Christian Petrarca, Clayton Oliver, Max Gawn way back when as well. But in more recent years, Keziah Pickett, Trent Rivers, and Luke Jackson. And they've also mixed that by bringing to the club two really, really elite defenders in Stephen May and Jake Lever. And by kind of blending the two ways of bringing players into your club in the AFL, what they've really done is just they've just timed it perfectly, and it really feels like now we're entering a period of probably the next 3, 4, maybe even 5 years where Melbourne will be in contention. So I think that Melbourne fans can rest a little easy knowing that even if this doesn't happen to be the season where the curse is broken and the trophy is lifted, I do think that this squad is now built and is in a position to contend for many years to come. But like I mentioned, let's get into some of the stats. So the first players I should definitely talk about here are the two big star attractions in the team, Christian Petrarca and Clayton Oliver. They're the two midfield metronomes, and I think the reason why they work so well is that they kind of offer. They maybe on the surface might look like two kind of similar-ish players. They're two players that kind of they're proper athlete built. You look at both of them. They're tall, strong, wide players, but also very classy. And they have a bit of dynamic movement in them. They're also both quite fast. None of them are slow. So they kind of have that all-round athlete kind of AFL body build that you look for, and AFL players are some of the most elite athletes in the world anyway, but these are two just peak professionals, just entering the peaks of their career and are peaking at the same time, and I think that they vibe off each other really well. And you look at Clayton Oliver, he's the kind of he picks the ball up off the ground. He's sort of that guy that's desperate to get his hands on the ball, and he moves it so fast sometimes to his detriment. He gets caught throwing the ball instead of correctly disposing it. But he's just so elite at getting the ball and disposing it. And then you go to someone like Christian Petrarca, who's more of the kind of the classic AFL star. You sort of he's built in the mold of like a Chris Judd of the early 2000s. He's great with his hands, like Clayton Oliver as well. But what he's got, there's just that little bit of X factor as well. He can score a goal from 50. His kicking is incredible when he's trying to hit targets on the lead. He can send a kick right into the middle of a contested pack mark and put it right in the hands of the likes of McDonald or even Max Gawn if he heads up. So they've got two absolute star players there, and both will be in contention for the Brownlow this season. You'd probably say that Clayton Oliver is just ahead of Petrarca, but if you look at some of these stats, you can see why they're both so crucial. So Clayton Oliver has 659 disposals this season, 6th in the comp, while Christian Petrarca 603, 11th in the comp. So both over the 600 mark this season, which puts them in the elite category. And Melbourne is the only team that has two players in the top 11 there for disposals. And then obviously alongside Zach Merritt and Darcy Parish for Essendon are probably the other two that come to mind as well, of kind of having that tandem partnership in midfield that works so well. Another thing for let's talk about what Petrarca. So as I mentioned before, Petrarca he has that kind of slick handball game and possession and disposal game that Clayton Oliver has, but he also has that attacking intent and connection with the forward line. And it's proven this season he's first in the comp for score involvements. So not just scoring goals, but also setting goals up and like starting the moves and sort of being involved all round, with 168 score involvements. So that's just obviously shows he's absolutely elite, because he's nowhere near the top in terms of the goal scoring itself. So pretty much everything that is going into the Melbourne forward 50 is coming through that man, Christian Petrarca. Another notable stat about Petrarca as well is that his ground ball inside 50 pickups are just elite as well. So alongside Keziah Pickett, who's has 48 pickups inside the forward 50, and Christian Petrarca has 47. So it also shows that the game style of Melbourne is very intelligent here. They are picking the ball up off the ground in the forward 50, so they're happy to knock it to ground and then play kind of in that sort of scrambled fashion, because they trust that these guys like Keziah Pickett, Christian Petrarca, Clayton Oliver, they have the clever hands that can pick the ball up and make space for themselves and then affect the scoreboard. The club is also intensely working on upping the pressure inside forward 50. With the likes of Alex Neale-Bullen really standing out when you delve into the stats here. What I found was that Alex Neale-Bullen is the first in the comp with 38 tackles inside 50, meaning that he is constantly hassling those opposition defenses inside their own defensive 50. Which when you start that kind of full forward pressure, it really allows guys just behind him like a Petrarca and an Oliver to kind of wait in the wings, pick off things. They can trust that the kind of skewed defensive clearances are going to come. And when you got someone as tall as Max Gawn as well, he can also kind of read those situations, come forward and sort of back his ability to mark the ball in the pack. And also adding to that as well, Keziah Pickett was also fourth on that list of tackles inside the forward 50, which means that it's not just it's not just Alex Neale-Bullen, it's also Keziah Pickett, and Tom McDonald I think has 25 as well. So it's clearly an instruction coming from Simon Goodwin that we've seen a lot more of in the back half of this season, which is to keep that intense forward pressure up, and it's worked really well for them in the last few weeks. Specifically, another thing that has to be mentioned as well is the two guys that I mentioned near the start of the video as well, which is Jake Lever and Stephen May. So Jake Lever was bought from Adelaide, and Stephen May coming from the Gold Coast Suns. Now these were two kind of defenders that they're quite good in the competition. Stephen May had had quite the experience. Jake Lever had played in a losing grand final for the Adelaide Crows, but the problem, some fans I guess don't trust sort of the trade process. You never know what you're giving up. You could be giving up, if you're giving up a high draft pick, you could be giving up, an opportunity to take one of the league's best up and coming players. Sometimes, clubs just prefer to do that rather than take a risk on a play, because you could sign a player, you could get injured, and then you've lost your advantage in the coming years from that draft decision. But these two guys have really, really adapted to life at Melbourne excellently, and to be honest, they've been the missing part of the jigsaw puzzle for Melbourne, because the defence has been where everything has built from. Every great Premiership side is built off a really strong defence. You think of West Coast in 2018 with Hearn and McGovern. And this Melbourne defence is no different. So if we look at Jake Lever in particular, he's 38 contested marks, so 10th in the comp for that, and he's actually first in intercept marks in the comp with 87. Now that stat may just sound like a kind of blasé stat there, but what's really important about those 87 intercept marks is actually not only, like I said, is it the first in the comp, but it's also the record for intercept marks in a season in AFL history. So Jake Lever has really been reading the game better than anyone else in the AFL competition this season, and it's gone a little bit, maybe a little bit unnoticed. He has been mentioned, and rightly so. He will be in the All-Australian team this season, but you would say that maybe for that kind of level of statistic, he should get a little bit more recognition for that. So yeah, his partnership with May, sort of Lever being the one that sort of steps outside of the defense and kind of picks up the ball, and is able to intercept and pass it off to the likes of Salem, who then has had a really good season as well, and then get the ball into midfield, and Lever has been excellent with his kicks into midfield as well. And then you've got May, who sits back just that little bit further and is able to make marks and muscle his way in contested kind of fights for the ball, and also stop those lead runners sort of drifting back into the goal square. So they've created a really good partnership there. Max Gawn is looking like near back to his sort of best form sort of thing, where that was in contention for the Brownlow. But he's working really well. He's got 49 contested marks, which is third in the competition. You expect that from a big man like Max Gawn, but it's great to see him kind of having this sort of talismanic captain's impact. Just lost signal for a second there, but no worries, we're all back. So just to round things off, I'm just going to mention one of the things that I mentioned at the top of the video, and just sort of talk about it just a little bit more, which is the fact that not only do Melbourne have these kind of elder stars, the Max Gawn, Stephen Mays, sort of Jake Levers, Christian Petrarca, Clayton Olivers, these guys sort of in their prime, but they also have some of the most exciting young players in the AFL competition. They have 4 Rising Star nominations this year, with Jake Bowie just getting a nomination this game gone by, Trent Rivers, James Jordan, and the likely winner of the Rising Star award is Luke Jackson, who has looked fantastic. And just the thought that Melbourne has probably got 2 of the best 5 or 6 ruckmen in the AFL competition is surely a great sign. And that sort of competition between Gawn and Jackson, it's going to be great to watch going forward, because the more that you can trust Jackson in the ruck, you can send Gawn a bit more forward, and vice versa, and you can have another big tall man jumping up to make those marks inside the forward 50, which can be a real game changer, especially coming into finals. So just to finish off the video, I just want to credit Simon Goodwin for everything that's happened this season. He's copped a fair bit of flack along the journey, particularly finishing second bottom in 2019, just narrowly missing out on the finals last season. Some fans weren't quite sure about, 100% where this was heading, but the Melbourne Football Club has stuck with him and believed in the process, and it's reaping the rewards. And to be honest, I think that things have opened up for a bit for Melbourne this season, and I think that there is a strong chance that if things fall their way, they can be the premiers for the first time in 60 years, pretty much. It's an exciting time to be a Melbourne fan, especially as a WA Melbourne fan like myself. So there's a strong opportunity that the grand final could actually be played in WA. So good could get to see them play in the first grand final since the year 2000, which is exciting. And all that needs to be done to essentially lock this Melbourne team into the history books is for them to win this game against Geelong. They're going away. Stewart is out for Geelong, and he's first in the comp for marks with 178 this season, so he'll be a big loss for them. And I think that if Melbourne go into this game sort of in the vein of form that they have been recently, I think that they shouldn't fear anyone, and I think that going into the finals, they will be the team to beat, and it's really, really going to be exciting to see how this season finishes, because it's such a lovable team. It's a team that I think Melbourne fans can be proud of for the season so far, regardless. And I think that, like I mentioned, it's no matter what, it's not the end, but I do think that this could be the year for Melbourne. So Melbourne fans, AFL fans, soccer fans that have stumbled across this video, let me know what you think about what I've said, and if you'll be watching the final game of the season with Melbourne against Geelong for the battle for the minor premiership. And if there's enough people, I might even stream the game. So yeah, let me know, guys. Awesome. Thanks for tuning in for another video from Football Heritage, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks.